that screen. Okay. Okay. What we did last time, which is the first lecture for object-oriented programming, was the key thing is we try to use a programming concept called object, try to model the real world object that we try to build a system or develop some kind of management system so we can apply this digital representation of the real world object, such as a bottle of beer, such as your health record, and such as our current location. So it's not necessarily a physical object we're talking about. This object could be anything. It could be information concept, such as GPS location, or it could be a psychological concept, such as what's your mental situation at this moment when you listen to the lecture, and maybe something is occupying your thinking process about last night. So there's a lot of things going on that we can use objects. So the object is supposed to model anything that you can think of. Okay, you can model individual objects. You can even model relationship. By the way, later you will realize using object to represent a relationship either is a binary relationship or is a more like a community relationship is actually doable. It's very, very interesting how you can do that. Okay, that's the first thing we talk about is the concept of object. The second thing we talk about is the concept of class. So I typically interpret why do we need class and what is a class? By the way, I should say that not every single object-oriented programming language has class. Some of them are developed just using objects. So for example, I can directly specify what the object is without going through the class. Or I can use some other concept which is somewhat similar to class, but the way they operate is totally different. But the mainstream object-oriented language, they all have a class. The mainstream, three of them, C++, Java, and Python. They all have classes. So we're going to talk about class because that probably is more practical in today. If you join a software company, you're doing object-oriented programming, you're probably going to deal with class. Okay, so what is a class? So I have two different ways to approach the concept called class. Either one of this is important, and both of them correctly reflect why we need class. The first thing about class is that, well, I want to create an object. If I want to create an object, I have to have a blueprint. I have to have a skeleton about what this object should be like. So in other words, when I specify class, I'm really specify a plan or a blueprint or a specification about the object that I would like to create. For example, you can think about, okay, I want to create a class called person because I want to create a bunch of objects called person. And you can now imagine, well, the person is quite complicated. And the thing is that there probably, if I want to do a blueprint of a person, I mean, if you're a biology person, you probably need to have all the DNA sequence, all the low-level detail about biologically how a person is being constructed. But if you only worry about a person, such as a Facebook user, then the information is more focused about maybe your name, your birthday, which is usually it's a fake birthday. If you have a real birthday on those social media, okay, shame on you, okay? So just don't put real birthday on all this account, okay? I always have my birthday January 1st, whatever year I forgot, because why I can remember easily whenever they challenge me. Okay. All right. So birthday and your maybe your gender, maybe your address. By the way, it should always be fake address as well. All right. All right. Okay, you will hear me again and again. Okay, when you use online, just make sure don't provide any kind of real information. But the point is that a person, I want to model from biological perspective, and a person from a social media perspective is dramatically different. So a class is try to provide that footprint, and that footprint associate with how you're going to deploy this object. So based on this footprint, now you can start to do something we call construction. That's why last time we started seeing a class has a constructor. I'm going to go over those concepts again. There are typically 3 different classes of what we call member function, the function associated with each of the class. One is called constructor destructor. The other one is a regular member function. And the other one I kind of separate, some of the people didn't separate this, is there is a set of overloading operator, overloading member function, which we will talk about that, hopefully we'll talk about that today. So essentially I have this class. So I already specify what kind of software object I'm going to do. So you use constructor, provide some parameter. So the example we use is we have this parameter such as GPS location. Initial, it's 2 floating point, and you enter that, then you're going to create a GPS object represents say Costco in Woodland or IKEA in West Sacramento, or UC Davis, such a like that. Okay, so that's one. So when you talk about class, the class is really just want to tell you how and what object that you would like to create. Okay, that's the first perspective about class. The second perspective of class is about abstraction. So when somebody provide you a class definition and an object. So when I look, the first one is I have the class, I create an object. But now I'm actually going to do somewhat different is that first I have the object. And I'm actually look at what class that this object belongs to. So it means that this class, by the way, when I say class, maybe classes, because now we're talking about a single class, create a single object. Later, you will see it's really a tree or a hierarchy of class that's actually create an object. That's when we talk about inheritance. But anyway, that's assuming we have a class and I have object. This object is called, say, umbrella. So the other perspective of class is that when I look at the object, I realize which class it was created. Now I can actually see, okay, by looking at the specification or blueprint, I will know that, well, how do I interact with this particular object? Okay, so essentially it provides abstraction. When you create is a person, then you're expecting what kind of feature, how to interact with a person. If you create another object called rabbit, then you wouldn't use the natural language to talk to the rabbit, even though I did that all the time. Okay, so essentially you will decide what is the class of the object, decide how to interact. So remember I show you a bunch of member function. So for example, one of the member function, let's actually look at the class.